picture the scenario, right?
Yeah.
You are you're navigating the aisles of a supermarket.
Or you're shopping online, which is even more common now.
Yeah, exactly. You've got multiple tabs open on your browser, and you are just meticulously comparing unit prices. Like you are actively hunting for those bright red tags.
The flash sales, the bulk discounts, all of it.
Right. And when you finally secure that preferred brand of pasta or, your premium coffee at a steep markdown, there's this distinct psychological rush.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a victory.
It really does. You walk away feeling economically disciplined. You operate under this assumption that your discipline, your willingness to wait for the optimal moment to buy is this functional shield against inflation.
Right, against all the broad economic anxiety out there, especially with everything going on right now.
Exactly. You believe you are effectively gaming the system. You are the smart consumer.
Well, it's a highly rationalized defense mechanism, honestly. Yeah, we rely heavily on the belief that applied effort and consumer savvy yield direct financial control.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to feel like I'm in control of my budget.
We all do. But the architecture of modern retail actually relies heavily on consumers maintaining that exact perception of agency.
Okay, so perception being the key word there. Because the documentation we are doing a deep dive on today suggests that this sense of agency is not just, slightly misplaced.
No, it's completely manufactured.
Right. It's mathematically engineered to be an illusion.
A psychological page, essentially.
Yeah, a cage. The feeling of outsmarting the market through savvy shopping appears to be this meticulously designed trap built on a foundation of rigid algorithmic pricing.
And we aren't just theorizing here. We are dissecting a massive, truly unprecedented archive of raw data today.
Yes, let's get into the sources. We've got a working paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Right, authored by economists Martin Berka, Michael B. Devereux, and Thomas Rudolph.
And the title is Price Setting in a Leading Swiss Online Supermarket.
Which sounds a bit dry, but the contents are anything but. Because this research bypasses theoretical models entirely. It's not ivory tower stuff.
For data.
Exactly. The authors secured over 1.12 million real-world retail transactions from a dominant Swiss online grocer.
Over 1 million transactions. That is a massive sample size.
And it covers 4 continuous years. From 2004 to 2007, they captured every single barcode.
Every timestamp, every microscopic price fluctuation, and every quantity purchased, right?
Yes. But I know what you're probably thinking and what the listener is probably thinking right now.
The timeline. Yeah, I want to address the timeline immediately.
Because 2004 to 2007 was a long time ago.
Right. Looking at a study based on data from, 20 years ago naturally invites skepticism.
Right.
We live in this era of hyperdynamic pricing now.
Where an airline ticket changes price while you're literally looking at it.
Exactly. Or a rideshare algorithm surges while you're walking out the door.
Yeah.
So applying data from the mid-2000s to modern consumer behavior might seem, antiquated.
I get that. But the timeline is precisely what makes this data set the absolute holy grail for economic baseline testing.
Really? How so?
Because modern dynamic pricing algorithms are highly contaminated by individualized targeting.
Contaminated, like they have too much of our personal data.
Exactly.
Right.
Today, they factor in your specific browser history, your exact location, your previous purchase habits. It's impossible to see the baseline rules of the market because the market is reacting to you specifically.
Oh, I see. So the 2004 to 2007 Swiss data is like looking at the engine before all the modern modifications were bolted on.
That's a perfect analogy. It represents the pure foundational architecture of digital retail right before the introduction of hyper-personalized AI.
So it shows us the underlying structural logic.
Yes. How a digital retailer manipulates pricing for an aggregate population without the noise of individualized tracking. And, crucially, this was an online supermarket.
Right, so no paper tags.
Exactly. The physical lag of printing and replacing paper shelf tags was completely eliminated. The retailer could change prices instantly if they wanted to.
Okay, so that structural logic fundamentally breaks standard economic assumptions, right? Let's talk about the textbooks.
Ah, the textbooks. Traditional neo-Keynesian macroeconomic models.
Right. They tell us that prices are fluid. They adjust organically to the invisible hand of supply and demand.
That's the gospel. If demand wanes or input costs drop, prices should theoretically adjust downward. It's a living ecosystem.
And the initial superficial read of this Swiss data actually appears to validate that textbook model.
It really does.
Yeah, because when the researchers calculated the average frequency of price changes across hundreds of categories, like beverages, yogurts, dry goods, They found that prices changed, on average, every 2.2 months,
which translates to about 5.5 price adjustments per year.
which sounds completely normal. On the surface, the market appears incredibly reactive.
It looks like a living, breathing ecosystem responding to market forces, just like we're taught.
Oh.
It's the surface carnival.
Surface carnival, yeah. But the researchers realized that taking those surface fluctuations at face value obscures the actual economic reality.
It's a deliberately constructed hallucination.
Hallucination.
Wow.
So what did they do to see through it?
Well, they introduced a filter. They systematically scrubbed the data of any temporary price changes.
And how did they define temporary?
Any price movement that lasted for just a single week before reverting to its original state. They filtered all of that out to find what they termed the reference price.
The statistical anchor.
Exactly. Mathematically defined as the most common price a specific product held during any given quarter.
Okay, so once you strip away that high-frequency noise, all those one-week sales and temporary adjustments,
Yeah.
what happens to that fluid, dynamic market?
It completely evaporates. Just poof, gone.
Wow.
The researchers found that the true core price of a product, that underlying reference price, it changes only once every 3 years.
Wait, 3 years?
On average, yes. 3 years of absolute stagnation.
That is insane. So the baseline cost of a good is locked in for 36 months. It's completely detached from the supposed daily push and pull of supply and demand.
Completely detached. The textbook model of constant fluid adjustment is basically a myth at the core level.
It really forces a complete visualization shift. Like you might look at retail pricing like the surface of an ocean, right?
Right, with crashing waves, white caps, constant chaotic movement.
Yeah, all reflecting that 2.2-month cycle of adjustments. But if you sink below the surface, dive down a few feet, the deep water is cold, dark, and just utterly motionless.
For years at a time, the power center of the pricing structure is entirely immovable.
Okay, but how does this compare to other data? Was this just a weird Swiss anomaly?
Not at all. But the extremity of this rigidity is stark when you juxtapose it with legacy data sets.
Like what? What's the gold standard here?
For decades, the gold standard for this kind of research was the Dominic's Finer Foods study
Okay.
that analyzed physical supermarket scanner data in Chicago during the early to mid-1990s. Now, the Dominic's data demonstrated that core reference prices stayed flat for roughly 1 year.
A year is still a long time for a price to not change.
It is. In a given quarter, the Dominic's data showed zero movement in core prices, about 10% to 19% of the time.
Okay, so 10 to 90% of the time the price didn't budge. What about our Swiss digital data?
The Swiss digital data shows that in 56% of all quarters analyzed, there is absolutely zero movement in the core reference price.
56%?
Yes. More than half the time, for 3-month stretches, the fundamental value of the commodity does not shift by a single fraction of a cent.
So a digital storefront, which has literally zero physical friction, to change a price they don't have to print anything or walk down an aisle, exhibits drastically more price rigidity than a 1990s brick-and-mortar grocery store.
Exactly, which is a massive slap in the face to standard economic theory.
It really is. And this leads directly to a massive contradiction regarding inflation, doesn't it?
Oh, huge one. Let's talk about menu cost theory.
Right. Traditional models rely heavily on this menu cost theory to explain why prices don't change every day.
The basic idea is that businesses incur administrative and psychological costs when changing prices. Literally the cost of reprinting the menus in a restaurant.
Or paying an employee to swap out the paper tags on a grocery shelf.
Exactly. So the theory says businesses absorb minor fluctuations and only adjust their core prices when the cumulative pressure of inflation becomes unbearable.
Okay, so if menu cost theory held true, we would expect to see these frozen 3-year Swiss reference prices eventually shatter and adjust upward, strictly in response to heavy inflationary pressure.
Right. They hold the line as long as they can, and then, boom, they have to raise prices to survive.
But there's a catch with the Swiss data, isn't there?
A massive one. The macroeconomic environment in Switzerland during the specific 4-year window was deflationary for these specific food categories.
Deflationary, meaning costs were going down.
Yes. The actual inflation rate for the studied goods, things like beverages, yogurt, pasta, it averaged negative 0.02% per month. The pressure on input costs was downward.
So prices should have been trending down.
They absolutely should have.
Yet the data shows that when the core reference prices finally did break their 3-year freeze, over 60% of the adjustments were increases.
It's mind-blowing. The underlying cost of the goods was dropping due to deflation, but the retailer raised the baseline price the majority of the time anyway.
So they weren't responding to a desperate need to survive inflation or rising input costs.
Not at all. They were systematically raising the baseline value of goods in a deflationary environment.
So the capital structure was operating on a profit-maximizing logic that completely ignored the basic assumptions of menu cost theory.
Exactly. The retailer absorbed the savings from deflation, they refused to pass them on to the consumer, and instead they pushed the core price higher. They quietly raised the baseline.
That is incredibly frustrating to hear.
And it breaks another fundamental assumption regarding the mechanics of price adjustments.
Okay, what's that?
Well, if we stick with the logic of menu costs, right? The idea that changing a price is a massive hassle. A business should realistically employ one of two strategies. If the administrative cost is high, they should rarely change prices. But when they do, the jump should be massive to cover future volatility.
Okay, that makes sense. And the alternative?
Conversely, if the administrative cost is near zero, as it obviously is in a digital supermarket, they should make frequent micro adjustments. A penny here, a fraction of a percent there. Just ride the wave of the market.
Right. If it's free to change the price, change it every day by a tiny amount.
Exactly. But the Swiss data completely subverts that logical binary.
What did the researchers find?
They documented a distinct positive correlation between the frequency of a price change and the magnitude of that change.
Wait, run that by me again?
The goods that experience the most frequent core price adjustments also experience the most violent, massive price swings.
Oh, wow. So goods that rarely change price saw minor adjustments, but goods that constantly change price saw massive spikes and drops.
Yes, the exact opposite of what logic dictates.
So this indicates that the physical or administrative cost of changing a digital tag is, well, it's completely irrelevant to the pricing strategy.
Completely irrelevant. It forces us to discard the administrative hassle of pricing as a driving factor entirely.
Because if a core price is jumping violently and frequently, it is not reacting to the cost of printing a digital tag.
Right. It is reacting to massive structural supply shocks or violent shifts in consumer demand elasticity.
So the market is not this gentle balancing scale we're taught about.
No, it's a rigid system punctuated by violent corrections that consistently favor the retailer, even when broader inflation is non-existent.
Okay, this brings us back to the surface volatility, the carnival. We established that the deepwater reference price is immovable for 3 years.
Yes, 3 years of dead water.
So what exactly constitutes the waves? What is driving that 2.2-month cycle of price changes if the core price is static?
Remember that filter the researchers used?
The one scrubbing out the temporary, 1-week changes.
Yes. They found that 96% of all deviations from that 3-year static reference price are temporary 1-week downward adjustments.
96%.
96%.
So in practical terms, almost all price movement within the supermarket is simply a sale.
Exactly. The ocean isn't churning. It is a flat pane of glass where occasionally a trapdoor opens, the price plummets for exactly 7 days, and then it immediately snaps back to the absolute maximum reference price.
Okay, but why? If the core price is the mathematically desired revenue target, running continuous massive 1-week sales requires some kind of strategic justification.
It does.
And it's not about liquidating expiring inventory, right?
Right.
Because this behavior applies to highly storable goods like pasta and canned beverages just as much as perishables.
Exactly. It's not about clearing out old yogurt. To understand the justification, we have to look at Chevalier and Koschep's models on consumer price discrimination.
Chevalier and Koschep. Okay, break that down for us.
They built an economic framework based on the premise that a consumer base is fundamentally divided into 2 psychographics.
2 types of people.
Right. You have the loyal shopper and you have the bargain hunter.
Okay, let's define the loyal shopper first.
The loyal shopper possesses high brand affinity and low price sensitivity.
Meaning they don't really care what it costs, they just want their specific brand.
Exactly. They place a higher premium on their time and the reliability of their preferred brand than they do on financial optimization. They walk in, grab their preferred premium orange juice, and do not even look at the tag.
Honestly, we've all been that shopper on a busy Tuesday after work.
Absolutely. Now, the bargain hunter represents the inverse.
High price sensitivity, 0 brand loyalty.
Right. They are willing to expend significant time and cognitive energy comparing unit prices, delaying purchases, and substituting brands to achieve a perceived financial victory.
They're the ones with the spreadsheets and the coupon apps.
Yes. And Chevalier and Koschap's theory posits that the retailer uses the mechanism of the sale to perfectly separate these two cohorts and extract maximum profit from both.
Oh, I see where this is going.
The retailer maintains that rigid, 3-year reference price to guarantee maximum extraction from the loyal shopper who isn't paying attention.
They harvest the people who are in a hurry.
Exactly. And then the 1-week sale is deployed selectively to capture the bargain hunter, who would otherwise refuse to purchase the item at the peak price.
So it is textbook price discrimination utilizing time as the separating mechanism.
Perfectly stated. And Chevalier and Koschap's model made a very specific, confident prediction regarding the mechanics of this separation.
What do they predict?
They hypothesized a direct relationship between the frequency of a sale and the depth of the discount.
Okay, so how often it goes on sale versus how cheap it gets.
Right. If a store places a commodity on sale frequently, say every 2 weeks, the bargain hunter does not have to wait long. Because the waiting period is short, the required reward is small.
Oh, I get it. Therefore, frequent sales should mathematically equate to tiny incremental discounts.
Exactly. Conversely, if an item goes on sale only once every 18 months, the retailer must offer a staggering, massive discount to reward the bargain hunter for their extreme patience.
So the prediction was entirely rational. Frequency inversely correlates with the size of the discount.
Highly rational. And completely, utterly wrong in practice.
The scanner data destroys the prediction, doesn't it?
Emphatically, the Swiss archive proves the exact opposite is true. Products with the most frequent sales actually feature the largest, most extreme price drops.
Wait, so the items on sale constantly are the items with the deepest percentage cuts?
Yes.
But hold on. When you observe a retailer constantly putting a premium item on sale and slashing the price by like 40% or 50% every few weeks, it initially appears to be a failure of profit maximization. Like, why would a rational business voluntarily surrender their margin so frequently? Aren't they just giving away their profits?
That's exactly what economists thought. But it is not a failure. It is a meticulously engineered psychological snare.
A snap.
A trap. The retailer is not targeting the rational optimization of inventory. They are targeting the cognitive vulnerabilities of the bargain hunter.
How did that work?
Well, think about it. If a retailer offers a small, predictable 5% discount, a rational bargain hunter might easily calculate that the savings do not justify the effort, right?
As the 5%, I'm not waiting 2 weeks. I'll just buy a generic substitute instead.
Exactly. But by deploying extreme, violent price slashes on a frequent but unpredictable schedule, the retailer shatters the consumer's rational defenses.
It creates a behavioral reinforcement loop.
Like a slot machine. You train the consumer to constantly check the tags, to continuously engage with the gamified ecosystem of the store, because the potential jackpot is massive and happens just frequently enough to maintain anticipation.
Oh, wow. So the objective of the massive frequent sale is basically to monopolize the bargain hunter's attention.
Yes. By keeping them locked into the hunt for the deep discount on a specific premium good, the retailer ensures that the consumer remains within their specific retail ecosystem.
I see. While the consumer is focused on extracting maximum value from, say, the loss leader pasta, they are simultaneously purchasing other non-discounted goods where the retailer extracts their full margin.
Precisely. The extreme sale is a mechanism to trap consumers whose time is not valuable enough to recognize the holistic cost of the engagement.
That is diabolical. And it really requires us to look at the mathematical reality of this supposed savings, doesn't it?
It does. It's time for the reality check.
Because we have millions of consumers expending vast amounts of cognitive energy, tracking these sales, clipping digital coupons, staying up till midnight for flash sales, strategically delaying their purchases. We need to quantify the actual macroeconomic impact of this behavior. How much are they actually saving?
Right. To find out, the researchers utilized a metric called the effective price.
The effective price, what exactly is that?
The effective price strips away the marketing narrative. It is the mathematical blended average of the actual dollars paid for a product over the entire 4-year period.
Okay, so it blends everything together.
Yes. It aggregates the revenue extracted from the loyal shoppers who paid the frozen 3-year maximum reference price and blends it with the revenue from the bargain hunters who exclusively purchased during the 96% of downward sale deviations.
It represents the true cost of the item to the collective consumer base.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to know. When we compare the absolute maximum reference price, that peak price that sits frozen for 3 years, to this blended effective price, What is the gap? Is it like 15%, 20%?
It is stunningly narrow. Despite the constant barrage of 30% and 50% off sales, the difference between the absolute maximum price and the blended average price paid by the public is a mere 1.87%.
Wait, under 2%?
Less than 2%.
That is a gut punch.
It's capital's charity.
Yeah.
Across the entire spectrum of goods analyzed, the collective savvy of the bargain hunters, the entirety of their strategic delay and brand substitution, managed to pull the average cost down by less than 2%.
You're kidding.
Now, for highly storable goods like pasta, where consumers can physically hoard inventory during a sale, the variance was slightly higher, pushing toward maybe 2.7%.
But still.
Right. Across the macroeconomic aggregate, the impact of the consumer strategic effort rounds to an irrelevant statistical error.
The math behind this 1.9% reality is brutal. It means a massive volume of goods must be sold at the absolute peak price to offset those deep discounts. Did the researchers quantify that volume?
They absolutely did. They found that an astonishing 81% of all physical quantities sold within the supermarket are purchased at the maximum non-discounted reference price.
81% of all items sold are at full price.
Yes. And because those 81% of items are sold at the highest possible price point, they generate 83% of the total store revenue.
83%. This is the true definition of a loyalty tax, or more accurately, a time tax.
That's a great way to put it. The vast majority of the population simply lacks the cognitive bandwidth, the time, or the energy to play the retailer's game.
Yeah, people are purchasing groceries after a demanding workday. They're navigating childcare. They have to prioritize immediate necessity over fractional optimization.
Exactly. The data explicitly proves that the entire apparatus of sales, promotions, and discounts is constructed to capture a highly volatile, highly elastic 17% of the revenue stream.
So 17%.
Right, all the flashy yellow tags, the buy one, get one thrills, the psychological rush of the deal. It exists exclusively to pacify the margins, while the overwhelming majority of consumer capital is quietly extracted at the absolute maximum penalty.
So if you identify as a highly capable bargain hunter, the data suggests you are not taking advantage of the retailer at all.
You're really not.
You're basically participating in a localized, controlled simulation of a free market, while the vast, silent majority of your own purchases and the purchases of the broader public are heavily subsidizing the retail structure at maximum cost.
Your individual victory is fully budgeted for, anticipated, and statistically neutralized by the sheer volume of peak price extraction.
I feel like we need to take a breath. That is a lot to process. All that exhaustion, all that savvy shopping, statistically irrelevant.
And it gets worse.
Oh, come on, how can it get worse?
Because the perceived agency of the bargain hunter is compromised by an even deeper layer of market manipulation.
Okay, lay it on me.
Think about the ultimate defense mechanism of the consumer, substitution.
Right. If my favorite orange juice isn't on sale, or if a premium brand refuses to lower its reference price, I, as a rational consumer, simply pivot to a competing brand's orange juice.
Exactly. The power to walk away and choose a competitor is the foundational pillar of free market capitalism. It's the illusion of choice.
And Chevalier and Kaschap's models assume this competitive friction exists, right? Traditional logic dictates that competing brands will actively stagger their promotional windows.
They should. If brand A and brand B are locked in a price war for the bargain hunter's dollar, they have zero incentive to discount simultaneously.
Right. Brand A lowers its price this week to capture market share. Brand B waits until brand A returns to its peak price, and then brand B initiates a sale. They should theoretically alternate their discounts to maximize their respective capture rates.
That's what a free, competitive market would look like. If market pricing were driven by independent, competing entities reacting to localized supply and demand, the occurrence of simultaneous sales among substitutable goods would be statistically negligible.
Okay, so did the researchers test this?
They did. They built a probability model to test this exact assumption. They calculated the expected frequency of overlapping sales if brands were acting independently and randomly.
Across what kind of categories?
Across 54 highly specific subcategories of goods. And we are not talking broadly about just beverages. We are looking at granular, highly substitutable clusters.
Like what?
Specific types of energy drinks, caffeinated colas, distinct fat percentages of yogurts, things where a consumer will easily swap one brand for another.
And what did the empirical data show? Let me guess. It completely shattered the model of independent competition.
Completely shattered it. The researchers discovered that these highly substitutable goods almost never go on sale independently.
Really? Never.
The promotional windows are highly synchronized. Competing brands drop their prices at the exact same time in heavily coordinated clusters.
Wow.
The incidence of multiple competing products within a subcategory going on sale simultaneously is massively higher than any model of random independent competition could possibly predict.
It's like a rigged game of musical chairs where the DJ pulls away all the chairs at the exact same second.
That is exactly what it's like.
But this level of synchronicity raises immediate questions.
Yeah.
How is this achieved without crossing into illegal, explicit price fixing?
Mm.
I mean, the executives at competing beverage companies aren't sitting in a smoke-filled room colluding on a Tuesday promotional schedule, right? How does the scanner data reflect such perfect synchronization?
It's a great question. It occurs through structural, implicit collusion and the mechanics of retail category management.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
Well, sometimes it is driven by wholesale supply dynamics. A massive manufacturer that owns multiple sub-brands will push a synchronized wholesale discount to the retailer. But more importantly, the synchronization is driven by the retailer's own internal algorithms.
Oh, the supermarket itself is pulling the strings.
Yes, the supermarket does not view brand A and brand B as separate entities fighting for your dollar. The supermarket views the entire cola category as a single unit of margin extraction.
So the retailer's algorithm dictates that this specific week is the optimal window to stimulate category-wide volume, so they trigger the promotions simultaneously across competing ladles.
Exactly. The illusion of substitution is completely compromised. The algorithm has encircled you.
So as a consumer, I recognize that my preferred brand is at a peak price. I feel a sense of rebellion, and I actively choose to switch to the competitor's product, which happens to be on sale. I feel like I've exercised free will. I've punished the expensive brand.
But your rebellion was anticipated. The algorithmic architecture of the retailer anticipated that exact pivot. By synchronizing the sales, the retailer ensures that regardless of which competing door you walk through, you are stepping into a pre-calculated profit margin.
Your rebellion of buying a different brand was already factored into the quarterly profit margin. You never even had a chance.
No, you didn't. And the implications of this rigidity and synchronization, they extend far beyond just the localized frustration of your grocery bill.
Let's zoom out then. Let's talk about the macroeconomic disaster that this data points toward. Because why does it really matter if my pasta's core price is locked in for 3 years?
It matters because the health of a macroeconomy relies entirely on the flexibility of micro prices.
Okay, let's conceptualize the economy as a massive physical structure, like a suspension bridge.
I like that.
A bridge must be engineered with a specific degree of flex. When a structural shock occurs, hurricane-force winds, or massive sudden weight loads, the materials must bend and sway to absorb the kinetic energy.
Right. If the materials are completely rigid, the structure fractures and collapses.
So in a macroeconomic system, individual prices are the flexible materials.
Exactly. When a massive systemic shock hits an economy, let's say a sudden geopolitical conflict disrupting supply chains, or a massive shift in central bank interest rates, or a global pandemic, prices are supposed to immediately flex.
They should rise or fall organically to absorb the shock, redistribute resources, and allow the market to find a new equilibrium without breaking.
But the NBER paper proves that millions of foundational microprices are not flexing. The core reference prices are frozen into 3-year blocks of ice. They are completely unresponsive to even direct deflationary pressure, as we saw earlier.
So what happens when a massive shock impacts a highly rigid system like that?
The energy must be absorbed somewhere else. The ledger has to be balanced.
Right? The kinetic energy doesn't just disappear.
No. If corporate algorithms and rigid retail structures dictate that core prices cannot or will not adjust downward to meet a collapsed demand curve, the company maintains the rigid price point, and instead they cut the variable cost.
And what's the variable cost?
They cut human labor.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because the price of the commodity refuses to bend, the employment market shatters.
So the rigidity of these millions of localized algorithmic microprices, that is the exact mechanism that translates a broad economic shock into a sudden, devastating spike in unemployment.
And deep, prolonged recessions. The worker loses their livelihood specifically because the system refuses to let the price tag on the shelf adjust to reality.
That is chilling. It
Yeah.
fundamentally alters how we view economic downturns. They're not necessarily natural disasters.
No, they're the mathematical consequence of a pricing architecture that prioritizes the stability of peak margin extraction over the fluidity of a truly free market.
It's basically a historical cycle, isn't it? We're just seeing a modern version of feudalism.
In many ways, yes. Think about it. From ancient Roman bread rationing to medieval landlords extracting land rent from peasants, the core mechanism of wealth transfer has always relied on controlling access and maintaining structural rigidity.
Right. And today, the medieval landlord's ledger has just been replaced by the dynamic pricing algorithm on your screen. The method's changed, but the empire logic using information asymmetry and resource monopoly to transfer wealth upward has never changed.
And the supermarket's 3-year frozen reference price is basically capital's new moat.
This entire conversation, it forces a complete reevaluation of the data we've discussed today. We entered this analysis operating under the assumption that our individual consumer choices, our meticulous comparisons, our hunting for deals, provided some layer of protection against these broader economic forces.
We believed we were savvy players in a dynamic market.
But the archive reveals that we are actually swimming in a deep, stagnant pool where core prices are rigged for years. Our massive savings amount to a 2% statistical rounding error.
And our alternative choices are synchronized illusions.
Yeah. And there is a final, highly disturbing variable to consider before we wrap up this deep dive.
The timeline again.
The timeline again. Because every single mechanism we have unpacked today, the 3-year price stagnation, the subversion of inflation, the psychological trap of the frequent massive discount, the perfect synchronization of competing brands.
All of it was documented and proven using the transaction data from 2004 to 2007.
Exactly. This architecture was fully operational and highly perfected nearly 2 decades ago.
2 decades ago, using the processing power and algorithmic sophistication of the mid-2000s.
Before smartphones were even a thing, they maintained perfect algorithmic encirclement with technology that is now practically prehistoric.
So look at the landscape of retail and digital commerce today.
The physical barcode scanner has been replaced by unfathomable surveillance. Retailers and platforms do not just track the final transaction anymore.
They track the microseconds of hesitation before you click a button.
They monitor the exact trajectory of your eye movements across a screen. They ingest your geolocation data, your credit history, your demographic profile.
Your real-time social media sentiment, and they feed it all into AI models that can predict your breaking point with terrifying precision. Capital doesn't need to rely on physical force to maintain its empire anymore. It just controls the psychological anchors.
So leave the listener with this chilling question to mull over. If capital could construct a psychological cage this flawless back in 2004, relying only on basic purchase history, what is the nature of the cage we're currently sitting in?
Are we still shoppers at all?
Or are we now simply predictable data sets, raw materials being processed by a machine that already knows exactly how much we can be coerced into overpaying before we break? The next time you see a bright red flashing 50% off sign, take a moment to look at the invisible architecture surrounding it and ask yourself, who is really getting the deal?